Hello friends, welcome back to another video. If you've been watching my videos for a little while, you may have noticed that I took some time off. I did talk about it in the last video. I just wanted to take a step back from creating. I really wanted to take some time this year to focus on just having hobbies and just enjoying life rather than trying to make a big production out of everything that I do. And ever since the decision to stop making videos, I have been able to read just for fun. The other day I was in Barnes and I got that same feeling in my chest that I got when I had first started making book videos and I bought 7 Days in June and Yoke by Mary H.K. Choi. The same feeling of hope, I guess. Feeling like something good is gonna come from what I'm doing just because I was book shopping. Because I had it in my head that the book I'm gonna pick is going to be a good one, and spoiler alert, it was. I hadn't heard anything about this book prior to seeing it in the store. I saw it purely based off of the cover. I read the back and I read the first page just to get a feel for the writing style. That's the only influence I had. I didn't look up any reviews. I didn't see any other descriptions. I just saw it in the bookstore. It looked interesting. It seemed to be something I would like, so I picked it up. Did not want to put it down. This is Broken People by Sam Lansky. This was exactly the book that I needed right then. It has been so nice to take a step back from that online world and to just pick a book because I felt like I would like it. And that brings us to the physical TBR, which is something that a lot of people on the internet have, because for one thing, it looks cool. Also, if you make book content, you want to have options for books, right? And you also sometimes get sent books. There's lots of situations in which books are just received and then you just have them and you're only one person, you can't read them all, so you end up with a big stack of a physical TBR, books that you want to read but you don't have time for. And over the past 2 years, I have accumulated quite a few of those. And it's really stressing me out because I always feel like I'm behind. I always feel like I need to be reading these books, and so I feel guilty anytime I buy a new book because I feel like I should finish all of these first. And I believe I said it last year, but I'll say it again now. I really would like to get through my physical TBR so that I can buy new books as I want to read them. The issue with a physical TBR is you're always preparing for a feeling that you're gonna have. You're always stocking up in case you maybe are drawn to that book in the future rather than buying it when you actually want to read it. But the thing is, I have a Kindle, so if there's ever a book that I want to read immediately right in that moment, I can buy it with a couple of taps and I'll be able to read it. And I try not to have more than one book on my Kindle at a time that I'm actively reading because otherwise it stresses me out, and I don't know why I don't apply that same rule to my physical books because this is a lot more stressful. There are quite a few books here, some of which have been sitting for multiple years at this point, and they're just constantly weighing down on me. And I would like nothing more than to read through all of these books and to completely clear out my physical TBR, and then I only read books that I want to read, and I only buy books when I want to read them. All of that to say, we're gonna talk through every book on my physical TBR, and this is kind of gonna be one of those videos that you can look back at to see, okay, did we actually complete this goal? Did we actually get through all the books that are in this physical TBR? Are we moving through it? Or have I completely pushed them aside and I just continue to buy books? We'll see. I really hope that doesn't happen though. I would like to get through these because they've been haunting me for a long time. I think we'll start with some that have been sitting for a little bit longer, and then at the end I'll do a book haul of all the books that I've bought within the past month-ish. I'm gonna start with some that have been following me around the longest, or ones that for some reason I just cannot pick up and I don't know why. Starting off, we have one that is not a big story, but a collection of short stories, and it's just Agatha Christie. I've talked about this book lots of times. I bought it over a year ago, and in my head, I wanted to read it in 1 month because Storygraph tracks pages, and you can see how many pages you read each month, and I wanted to have all of these pages captured in 1 month so that it was accurate. For example, if I read 80% of this book in April but finished it in May, I didn't want all the pages to go to May because then it feels like cheating, even though that doesn't make any sense. I still read the pages regardless, and really it doesn't matter, but in my head it did. And I wanted to do that February of 2023, and then it was just too much, and I was still reading Harry Potter, and I never got around to it. I believe I've read one story. There is a bookmark in this. And I think the main reason is because I'm trying to force myself to sit down and read it all at once. If I just picked it up and read a short story every time I felt like reading a short story, I would actually make some progress. But because I'm viewing this as a book, a one story, it's just impossible. Going along with that, we have Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. This is kind of the same idea where it's just a really big book, and if I try to read it like a big book, I'll never get done. But the funny thing is, this isn't even my book. I don't own this book, so I could just return it to the person that I took it from, and then it wouldn't be in my physical TBR, and then I wouldn't have to stress about it anymore. I'm not gonna explain this problem again. classic horror stories. This is a Barnes & Noble edition of, again, just a bunch of shorter stories all bound up into one big book. I'm seeing a little bit of a trend. Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. I honestly had no desire to read this. I bought it for a Maddie Healy video. I was reading his favorite books. I got this one because it would look cool in the video, but I knew I didn't have time to read it. If it's anything like the other books that Maddie was recommending, I don't think I'll like it because I was very, very bored by all of those, and this is significantly longer. I bought a thick book like this so that I would look cooler, so that I would look like somebody who reads big books. But I'm allowed to like big books without liking every big book, so I don't have to read this. Pachinko by Min-Jin Lee is another book that I have been talking about for a long time. I believe Kaylin got it for me for an anniversary year and a half ago, I want to say. You're following generations of an immigrant family, and for whatever reason, I have just been so intimidated by this book. I have never had a desire to pick it up, even though I wanted to buy it when I first received it. I don't know what changed in my mind where I just now feel like I can never read this book. At this point, it's been so long that this is just one of those books that sits on my shelf as a can't read book because it's been there for so long. It's a book that I own and I'm allowed to read it, and that's the end of that. There are no can't read books. That doesn't make any sense. It's a similar idea for Imaginary Friend. I bought this almost 2 years ago, I think. I put it off because the font is very small, and also because one time I heard that there's stuff that's problematic in this. I have no clue what it is. I don't know what the story is about. I wanted something spooky for Halloween, but 2 Halloweens have passed and I still haven't read it. I don't think we can wait for another October. I think I need to just sit down and I need to start it. Really quickly, I also have some Book of the Month books that I never got around to because I was originally planning on doing a video in December where I talked about or maybe tier ranked all of the Book of the Month books that I had gotten because that was my first full 12 months that I had it. I read a lot of them. I managed to get through 8 out of the 12. The 4 that I did not read are Again and Again, The Kingdom of Sweets, River Sing Me Home, and Did You Hear About Kitty Carr? I have no thoughts about any of these books, good or bad. They're just books that I received that I do plan on reading at some point. I have The Witching Hour by Anne Rice, which I did pick up because it's a big one, but also because I really enjoyed Interview with a Vampire. I read the first 3 books in that series, and it was a very fun time. It was pretty easy to get into once I actually let myself get into it. That book took me a really long time, the first one, just because I had seen the movie first. So I was trying to compare every detail of it. I felt like I had to consume it a certain way when I just didn't. And then once I got to the second one, since I hadn't seen any other version of the story, I was able to enjoy it a lot more. So I don't know what this book is, but I like the author, I enjoyed the writing style, and I like the challenge of a thick book. So I picked it up. I don't know when I'll read it. I don't know why I kept doing this for so long. I need to be able to pick up a smaller book, and I need to accept that that is still a valid reading option. Because just looking at the stack is so intimidating. I feel like most people would not have taken this approach. I also have Ruth Ozeki's The Book of Form and Emptiness, which I did order from Europe. It traveled very far just for me to not read it, purely because I liked the spine, and in my head I was gonna put this up on my favorite shelf and the spine would look cool. Keep in mind, I've never read anything by this author before. I don't know what the story is. I have no reason to believe that it will be a favorite, but I just got the vibe. And then I think because it is a specialer edition and because I hyped it up, I just never got around to it because I don't want to mess that idea up. It's very similar to how I approached Sally Rooney, where I figured I would probably be a Sally Rooney fan, and so I didn't want to read her books in case that ended up not being true. I didn't want to start one of her books and then I realized that I don't actually like it as much as I thought I would, and then I have to say, no, I didn't really like that one. So I would rather live in this state where I can say I probably will. It seems like something I would like, rather than saying I actually did or did not enjoy it. Speaking of Sally Rooney, we also have Beautiful World, Where Are You? I did already read Normal People and Conversations with Friends, so this is the last of the big 3 that she has. I liked both of the other 2, so I'm assuming I will like this one as well. The Secret History by Donna Tartt would actually be a reread, but the first time I read it was on Kindle, so I bought a physical copy so that I could go through and properly annotate it. I don't feel too guilty about owning this book because that's really more of a fun side project than actually just reading the story. On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong is a book that I bought in New York. I want to say August of 2022. I was on a friend trip. It was the 5 of us, and we went to New York and we passed by a bookstore. This is the bookstore, and we went in, and I had seen this book online. I had seen good reviews, so I figured I'll just pick it up. It's a special place. Maybe it'll be a special book. And here we are a year and a half later. I still haven't read it, but I am actually 54 pages into it. I started a couple days ago, so hopefully we will be done with this one soon. And I only picked it up, I was only brave enough because I had just finished reading Broken People, and I was kind of looking for similar themes where the book is just completely devastating, and I figured this one would probably fit in. Kissing Kosher is a book that I will probably not continue. I would like to get rid of it, I think. I'm 50 pages in and I have had no desire to pick it up whatsoever. I was only reading it so that I could say I had read it in a video, so when I stopped making videos, I stopped caring about this book entirely. And that's not to say it's a poorly written book. I think it's good representation. The main character has chronic illness. Like, there's a lot of things that are good about this book, but there's also a lot that I just personally don't understand, I don't relate to, and I just don't get it enough to where I want to read this. The Immeasurable Depth of You, I bought this book because it was a signed edition and it was also featured on a local author's table. I did start reading it, but only barely because the family dynamic in this was just too close to home. The character lives in a similar place to where I do and has a similar relationship with the people in their family, and it was just too much. And it is also written like something that I would have liked maybe 5 or 10 years ago. I do think it's a little young for me now, so I don't know that I'll continue. I am curious to see where the story goes, but it was just a lot at the time. I have The Winners by Fredrik Backman, which I really don't know if I should have bought this one because I just tried reading Beartown, which is another book. I don't know if it's a series with an order or if it's just a bunch of books that exist in the same world. I did end up giving that one back to the library. I didn't end up finishing it, so I'm a little bit worried about having this one just because I don't know if I'll actually get through it or not. But these books are focused on ice hockey a lot, and I did care about it in Beartown because of the way that the characters cared about it, but I don't know how many books I can read that all focus on that. Then I have Wolfsong and Ravensong, which are 2 books that I bought the second that I saw them purely because I liked The House on the Cerulean Sea not so much, but Under the Whispering Door I did really enjoy. And then I saw that the author had a series that was being, I think it's already been out, but it was being reprinted. And I already know I like the way that the author writes, so I thought it would be cool to get nice editions of all of them. I probably should start reading the series so I know if I actually want to continue it, but I did buy the first 2 when I saw them. A Tale of Two Cities is another book that isn't technically mine, so I should probably just give it back because I have no desire to read this. It's just really been stressing me out because it's a classic, it's intimidating, it's also really beaten up, but I do want to be one of those really cool people that can go around carrying this book. I want to be the type of person that would read this, but I don't know that I am. As a recommendation from Kaylin, I have Annihilation, which I haven't read because it's part of a series and I don't want to start one and then feel like I have to continue it, even though the only way to know if I'd want to continue it is if I actually read the first one, so I need to try it at some point. It's not that long, it shouldn't be so complicated. Either I'll like it and I'll want to buy the rest, or I'll feel meh about it and then I can set it aside. I'm not sure what this is, but my partner told me to read it, so I have to. It's the only way. This is another book that I bought in New York just because we were at a Barnes and I wanted to remember. I wanted to get something to commemorate the whole trip, so I decided let's get a book, and this is the book that I got because it's one that I had never seen before. I figured this is something that captures the experience fairly well. I have not so much as looked at the first page. I don't know if you can even read that, but that is an incredible starting line. Valley of the Dolls I bought for a video where I was reading books for women, about women, something like that, written by female authors. I don't know. This was just an option for that video, which is kind of where a lot of these came from. I had vaguely video ideas and I wanted to stock up for when I inevitably did the video, and then it just didn't happen. I was so sure that I would be making all of these videos, but it didn't happen, and that's okay, because now I just have the opportunity to read a lot of really good books. I have no reason for not reading this book. This is Dracula. It's a very cool edition of Dracula. I don't know what the story is. Obviously, I know that there is a vampire, but that's about it. I don't know what the actual story itself is. I don't know why I have no interest in it, but I just don't. I wish I did, which is why I'm keeping it, because I know that at some point I'll pick it up and I will be curious, but right now I just am not. I have 7 more books that have been sitting with me for a little while, and then we'll get into the newer book haul. First, we have Lolita. This is a book that I have talked about quite a few times because for the past year or two I've wanted to make a video where I compared this to My Dark Vanessa because they're both the same story but from different perspectives. This one is a man who is in a relationship with a young girl, and that one is from the perspective of the girl. My Dark Vanessa is very much based on this book and references it quite a few times, so I felt like I should read this one first, and then it was just too much. Not even the book, but the idea of that video of having to compare them and then people watching that. I didn't want to compare it and then miss something or misinterpret something and then people all in the comments come and tell me that I'm reading it the wrong way. So I gave up on the video, but I did not give up on reading the books. I did read My Dark Vanessa last year. I have no doubt that I will read this at some point, but just without the pressure of a video. Haruki Murakami is an author that I have heard so much about, but I don't know anything about them. It's just one of those names that somehow is always popping up. I picked this one because it was big and also because I thought the pages looked cool. And again, I had it in my head that this could potentially go on a favorite shelf, so I wanted to have a spine that looked cool so that I could sit out like that, which doesn't even work because my current favorite shelf has the spines facing in. It has the pages out so that I can display the tabs that I added to it. I have read pretty much all of John Green's fiction books, but I have never picked up any essays or any nonfiction. And I've heard nothing but good things about this one, so I wanted to give it a try. I bought this one pretty recently, I want to say within the past month or two, so I'm pretty sure I'll get to it soon. It's not too long, it's very floppy. I think I'll have no problem getting to this. In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, I genuinely do not remember buying this. I know it's something that I've been wanting to read because it's a really cool format. I really like the way that the author went about telling their story, but it's intimidating because it's a hard story to read. 1984 is a classic. It's just something I haven't gotten to yet because I don't want to read it and then realize that I don't understand it as much as I should be. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. I got this book as a Christmas/birthday present last year and I never got around to reading it, but that is fully intentional just because the subject of this book is a little bit darker and I didn't know if I could handle that, so I just haven't gotten to it yet. I don't feel guilty about not reading this one either, just because I know that if I'm not ready for it, then I'm not ready for it, and I can probably judge when I will be. At this current time, I'm still a little bit too intimidated to go into this. And I think it's very cool that I'm able to respect myself enough to set that boundary, because there was a time where I would pick up books even when I definitely should not have been reading them, or even I would seek out that type of book. So I'm really glad I am now at a place where I can just acknowledge maybe this isn't the right time. And then the last book from this stack is Virginia Woolf's The Waves. And this is a book that I bought because of All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven, which, if you don't know, is one of my favorite books, purely because it was with me for so much of middle-ish and high school. I've read that book maybe 7 times. There were times where I would finish it and then immediately flip to the front to read it again. Those characters meant so much to me all throughout high school. I have since reread it and it wasn't as impactful, which is fine because I'm not in high school anymore. I'm not the same age as the characters, but it still means so much to me for what it was then. And in that book, they do reference a lot of Virginia Woolf, and I had never actually read it, so I decided to buy one. I'm intimidated to read it just because that book means so much to me, and I don't want to revisit any of the feelings that I had when I was reading that book. But I do think reading this might connect me to the story in a way that I've been missing. And then we're almost done here. These are the books that I've bought within the past month or two. My birthday was on the 21st of December, and I allowed myself to get something that I normally would not get: the entire box set of the Twilight books. I read the Twilight books maybe 3 years ago, and I normally would not get a box set just because it's kind of a big investment on books, especially if you haven't read them. But I did read these books, I did watch the movies, I know that I enjoy the story, and I have known since then that I wanted to reread it. So as a little birthday treat to myself, I got a couple of special editions. So instead of being the ugly black covers with the giant text, which I hate those, by the way, so when I saw these, I was very excited because they don't even have the title on the cover. It's just really cool images on white. It's so good. I did read all of these, which is why they're back in the box, but I still have to read Midnight Sun. I don't know if I'm gonna do it right away just because I did just leave that world. I don't know if I want to go right back into it, but I have already read this book as well, so the whole thing's just a comfort reread, honestly, and I'm very happy about it. For my birthday, I received The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. Again, I did already read The Secret History one time. That person that gifted me this also had read it and figured maybe I hadn't read this one. I've been too intimidated to buy it just because it is bigger than your normal book. It's just a lot taller, it's a lot heavier. I don't know what the story is at all, and I have to read it sometime soon so that I can get back to that person about how I feel about it. Everything on it is a book that Kaylin gifted me because it's something that meant a lot to them in their childhood. I don't know that I've ever read it, but it is nice to sit together and to bond over a book like this. Anyways, Sanctuary of the Shadow is a book I have heard nothing about. I did see somebody, maybe Olivia Reads a Latte. I saw somebody buy this book, but I had bought it before I saw them buying it. It doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to say that I am trying to distance myself from what other people are buying. I'm trying to focus on what I want to buy just based on what I like. So I did see somebody buy it, but it was only after I had bought it. Basically, I'm trying to say I liked it before it was cool. And I did buy this because they have cool spread edges at Barnes. I don't know what it is. I see a circus. I did just buy it because it looked cool, which I think going back, I probably wouldn't have done that, because what's the point of having a book that looks cool if you don't actually like the book, because you're probably not going to keep it. But they got me this time, so I'll give it a try. Light from Uncommon Stars. I don't know what to expect going into this. I bought it because I was looking up books with trans characters and this one came up and I can't remember why, so I will be going into this pretty blindly, but with the vague idea that there's something queer about it. When We Were Birds is a book that I bought the same time that I got Broken People, and I thought it was kind of weird because they're both bird themed. I didn't mean to do that. I did just buy it for this guy, I'm gonna be so honest. And also because I read the back and I thought that it sounded like something I have never read before, but mostly because of the bird. Horns by Joe Hill. I have no clue what this book is. This is something that Kaylin thought I would want to read. Don't know what it is, never seen it before. And then I believe this is the last book we have to talk about. Babel by R.F. Kuang. I've heard it both ways and it upsets me terribly because I don't know which way is correct. But this book is another dark academia. It was really hyped a while ago and I told myself I would get it only when it came out in paperback, because again, if it was supposed to go on the favorite shelf, then I would want it to match the others, and every other book on my favorite shelf right now is paperback. So this is the third book out of this stack that I have bought purely so that if it ends up being a favorite, it will look good on the shelf. Which is such a wild way to buy books because I have no reason to believe that these will be favorites. But on the off chance that they are, I need them to look good. So when I saw this at the bookstore and it was paperback, I had to get it. And that is every book on my physical TBR. I do think we need to count them right now so we know by the end of the year if I've gotten more or less. Hopefully, the number by the end of the year will be a little bit smaller. I could be mistaken, but I believe we have 40 books here, which honestly doesn't sound so bad because I watch people who have 200 or more. And that's not to say that they're bad for having that many books, but it is a lot. I think having a number will really motivate me because 40 sounds possible. I read 100 books last year and the year before that, which means even if I'm to read all of these, over half of the books that I can read this year will still be new if I'm trying to hit that goal of 100, which I obviously don't have to. I also don't have to finish all of these books, but it's nice to know that I could. I was honestly recording this purely for myself so that I can have something to look back at for these books so I can see if I actually got through them or not, because I just feel so sick of being trapped by them. That's not how this should be. Reading books should be fun, and if it's not fun, then I'm gonna change the system that I'm using until it is fun. If you like this video and you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I have another channel, Riverbend, where I post music content, although I will admit I am fairly distant from both channels at the moment. I will link my Goodreads and Storygraph. That's the only thing I'm consistent on right now. See you around!